Hi, welcome to Cruising Oceans for Biodiversity in a Safe Climate. We are going to be speaking with Hugo Hinrichsen and Jenn Bonilla, co-founders of Positive Polar, about biomimicry and whale highways. I'm Aria McKenna with Global Cooling Productions, and I'm happy to be back here at Florida Climate Week. As a Floridian myself, my pathway to becoming a climate advocate was always through the oceans. I first learned that warming oceans were killing coral reefs, a vital fish habitat, when I was scuba diving in the Keys. And many of us may also be aware that oceans actually serve as Earth's largest carbon sink. But because of human greenhouse gas emissions, oceans have been absorbing far too much carbon, which is creating ocean acidification and disrupting sea life. So this is also reducing the ocean's natural capacity to continue to absorb more carbon, which would continue to amplify the climate crisis at even faster rates of warming, ultimately endangering all of us. This is why I absolutely love what Jenn and Hugo are doing with Positive Polar. They are launching an eco cruise ship company, which has an incredibly holistic business model. They will give guests a first-hand opportunity to help replenish marine life and reduce ocean acidification while also restoring the natural carbon drawdown capacity of the oceans. So Jenn and Hugo, welcome. I'd love it if each of you could just take a moment to introduce yourself and tell us what draws you here and about your role in the company. Let's go ahead and start with Jenn.
Hi, I'm Jenn, and I live in Tampa, Florida. I'm excited to be the co-founder and president of Positive Polar, and I'm super excited to support and really bring together two of my passions and expertise. From an expertise perspective, I'm more than 25 years in biotech, developing science into products that can serve people everywhere, and really working carefully with scientists to develop practical solutions. So I'm very excited to bring that mindset and that collaborative capacity to the area of ocean restoration. And being able to do that in Positive Polar, combining that with expedition cruising, which is my passion and enjoyment for many years, it's really a dream come true, and I look forward to sharing more about that with you.
Excellent. Now, Hugo, please tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aria, for this opportunity. First of all, well, I'm the co-founder with Jenn. This is kind of something that is very related with all of what I have done in my life and also my family. I'm a captain of the reserve of the Chilean Navy. I served 26 years there, sailing all around the world, and I was in the US sailing in the North Atlantic in my 20s. That was a very nice experience. I did live 1 year in France, but I spent most of my career in Patagonia, being in charge of the Chilean Navy icebreaker as a second in command. Also, I was the chief of the most southern helicopter station of the world. So when I saw the changes that was happening there, specifically in that area in Patagonia, in comparison where the experience that I lived when I was a child, that makes me think that something was really dramatic happening, specifically because I just couldn't show to my child what was my childhood in those places in Patagonia. So I'm talking about the difference of climate, right? The weather, how the weather has been changed, the social structure. They couldn't enjoy the winter. For myself, the winter was a party because all the lagoons were frozen. For them, the winter was not so good because it was most of the time raining, and you can see all of that changes in the glaciers and everything. So I decided to do something about it. That's why I finally decided to find a partner, hopefully a global partner, and that's where I met Jenn, and we started with this company.
I love it. It's so interesting how our life experiences really guide us towards something later in life, and having that opportunity to pull in so many different things that we've learned, things that we've really discovered are our passions along the way. And, I know I've seen a lot of changes here in Florida, but I think that from what you're talking about with your experiences of experiencing ice, like we didn't really have much snow or ice situations growing up in Florida. But that really shows you get that serious juxtaposition. And I know I've seen it in the loss of biodiversity off the coast in Florida, which has really broken my heart in many
Yeah,
ways.
but you have the hurricanes, and I was with Jen with the last hurricane. That wasn't Jen can talk more about that, but that was definitely
Yeah.
something that the city was kind of new for the city. The
Yeah.
hurricane that hit Tampa last year, I think that didn't happen like 80 years ago or something like that. So it's really, and it seems to be that it's going to be more common and common. So yeah, something is changing, and we have to do something about it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, I grew up some of my time on the Gulf Coast, but I do worry about the Gulf Coast a lot these days. So, Jen, stay safe. I'm right here on the other coast right now in St. Augustine. But so now you guys will be traveling to Antarctica, the Caribbean, and beyond using biomimicry to recreate whale poop along whale highways, correct? So could you explain, how has the loss of whale populations affected biodiversity in general in the oceans?
Well, when we take almost 90% of the big whales in name of the progress, my family was part of that. They migrate from Denmark to Chile for whaling. But then we didn't know the importance of the whales in the ocean, how the key part that they were playing. They circulate the nutrients. They fit deep in the sea, eating these animals, giant squid, octopuses, and especially the ones that have like some sort of ink. And then when they make the feces into the surface, they release what is called a mineral-rich feces, and usually these are some particular mineral called iron that is very beneficial for growing phytoplankton. And the whales were doing this all of the time, specifically more in the Southern Ocean, where you don't have the dust that the dust that can come from the continents and also provide some minerals as iron. So the whales were the ones that were doing this. But when we catch almost all of the whales, this circulation of nutrients was almost stopped, right? Because the whales have not recovered yet. They still have 90% of the big whales missing. And that is a huge disadvantage for the ocean to recover. And also, the big whaling was not this romantic idea that we have of Moby Dick, right? And in the 19th century, that was the century when my family come to Chile. The big industrial whaling was between after the 1950, between 1950 and 1980. That's where was very mechanized systems. We kill almost all of the whales with cannons and cannons with harpoons and all of that, and they stopped really because they were almost no more in the ocean. That's why they stopped. It was not more commercially available. Here in Chile, they stopped in 1985, and in almost all of the countries that were whaling, it stopped in that years. So it was very recent how much whales we take from the ocean, and we are going to be there, mimicking whales and filling that gap. And maybe Jen, you can jump in right now and talk about more about what we are going to do.
Okay, so just to summarize, really it is that decline of the whale population that disrupted this nutrient cycling, and also the fact that There's fewer whales, which also means there's fewer whale carcasses sinking to the deep sea, which also impacts biodiversity because whale carcasses are important habitats and food sources for deep sea organisms. So that there's evidence to suggest that also the fact that there's fewer whales and fewer whales falling to the bottom of the sea when they die is having a major impact on some species, and some are going extinct driven by that. So the overall ecosystem has really, really suffered, and there's been quite a bit of effects both on the diminished carbon sequestration, because of course when whales sink, they take a lot of carbon down in their body as well, but also the biodiversity. So the opportunity is to help to restore biodiversity by biomimicking whales, helping to restore whales and think about ways to reduce ship strikes and facilitate more whale births, which is partly facilitated by having more food in the sea. You can also mimic what they would be doing in that nutrient cycling aspect by potentially having a kind of synthetic approach to basically whale poop. And so making a nutrient-rich composition that looks like whale feces biochemically and from a density perspective, and then sprinkling that much as you would fertilizer in your garden, but just as whales would be sprinkling their poop at the top of the ocean, a ship going through those parts of the ocean where whales are could also be sprinkling this biomimic whale poop. And the idea there is that you're going to boost ocean productivity. You're going to support the fisheries because you're going to end up with more fish. This is the base of the food chain is what happens. More whale poop leads to more phytoplankton, leads to more diatoms, leads to more fish, leads to more krill, leads to lots of other great things in the sea that feed many species. And so you can expect biodiversity to improve, and you also expect carbon sequestration to also improve, because a lot of this biomass that you've created with your whale poop, all these great fish are also sinking carbon as they respire and pool. So it's a really interesting question. It still needs appropriate scientific exploration, and that's the purpose for Positive Polar, is to get out in the ocean where the ocean is nutrient poor and to do these experiments at some scale, carefully and methodically, but moving forward in a public and peer-reviewed way. Because if it is possible to restore biodiversity this way, we really want to be doing it, and we want other ships to participate as well. So that's our purpose. And we'd love to bring people with us.
I find it amazing how synergistic so many of nature's processes are. And, something I feel like we've just really taken for granted in the way that we have, just kind of utilized nature for our own benefit without thinking about the impacts or without thinking about moderation in the process. And so, it's interesting you're talking about going along whale highways specifically. And my understanding is that it's going to be really important where it is that you guys do this. And so if you could just explain a little bit like what is known about whale highways and how it is important that you guys are utilizing that path in the process of introducing this into that ecosystem.
Yeah, and I could really recommend a report from a couple years ago by the World Wildlife Federation around the whale superhighways. So in brief, and I'll turn over to Hugo, whales follow specific paths around the world to go where they feed and breed and then give birth and then raise their young and then move. And so they're always on the move, but they're on the move in particular parts of the ocean at particular times of the year. And so if you're going to biomimic something in a system, you want to, again, take in consideration of every aspect of that system. And the whales are in certain parts of the ocean at certain points in time. And it may be important that what you're doing when you biomimic a whale for the entire ecosystem to benefit and not have unexpected harm, unanticipated harms, you truly need to biomimic how whales are doing it, which is not everywhere in the ocean all the time. But I'll leave that now to Hugo if he wants to say more. But this is part of the overall safety and appropriate approach to taking it forward.
Yeah, well, I would like to add the cruise part. As I said, I do have an experience in sailing into these waters all around the world, in Patagonia, in Chile, in the Caribbean Sea, in the North Atlantic. We have been there. That's the path that we are going to follow, right? And the good thing is that we are going to be always following the summer and with the cruise, because that's what whales do. Whales feed in the cold places in the summer, and then they go usually near to the equator when it's winter in the hemisphere. So that is fully compatible with our business model, because our business model is to be financed by the guest. And why we think that this could be really life-changing, really for the science, is because I was with the scientists working all of the time, and I knew that they were always lack of funds. They were always fighting for grants. There's not too much funding for, and they were always asking me when I was in the icebreaker, can we sail more? Do you have more time? Can we fly more? And there was no more resources, right? What we are going to provide is a financial way to support this science, because the guest will provide some percentage of their tickets will go directly to the research and development of the technologies that we are providing. And also they are going to love it and enjoy it, because they are going to be where the whales are. That's usually in Antarctica in the months between November and March. Then we go to the north through Chile up to Panama. Then we go to the Caribbean Sea, and we arrive. Then we go to Azores, and then we arrive up to Iceland, Greenland, and Svalbard. Between June, July, we spend there, and then we come back again. So we are going to be always following what is called the whale highways. So they are going to have an incredible, nice time, and also the scientists will have a good time, because they were going to be known and be funded. So that's the particular invention that we have created with this financial model.
Exactly. I mean, it is absolutely brilliant, because yes, in the climate space, funding is unfortunately so hard to come by so much of the time for these projects that have enormous visions and beautiful ideas that could change the world. And you're talking about a cruise ship venture, and I will say that for years I never felt like I could go take a cruise anywhere, because I always felt like that was going to have such negative impacts on the oceans. And I just felt, I really want to do that, but I didn't feel like it was something I could do in good conscience. And so you're redefining what that means to go on a cruise and do it in a not only just a responsible way, but in a beneficial way. And so, for instance, and you seem to be thinking about that on so many levels. So the fuel that you're going to be using, I understand, is going to be carbon neutral, correct?
Yes. Well, what you are saying about the feeling is something that is so also deep into myself, and as I said, we as a family has been in the sea all of the time, and to be seen as someone that, if I'm on the sea, to be seen that to someone that is making a harm is something so bad for us, because I enjoy the sea. I enjoy to be there. So I don't want to be classified as someone that, because I'm enjoying something, I'm doing a harm to that, right?
Right.
So with this, we are really, and you can see the statistics also of seafarers, sailors, that they don't want to be in the sea anymore, because less and less people want to work in the sea, because they are categorized as polluters. And that what we are doing right now is changing completely how the maritime workers, the maritime society, is going to face this new century. Because when we scale this is going to be, every ship will be produced, every ship of a certain size, right? Usually more than 1,000 tons, the ones that go off 12 nautical miles. Every ship of certain size will create life after their wake, right? Instead of it will be a mechanical whale. And whales will had been around all of the sea. So that is what we are going to produce. So will be a change of the perspective of how the maritime people is seen, and also the scale of this is huge. Also, the impact that we can produce is huge.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful concept. I'd love to just step back a bit and imagine what it would be to go on a cruise. So if you're a guest on this cruise, what would a typical day look like? I understand you're going to have some scientists on board who are doing work. How might they interact with the scientists? What are the learning opportunities? If you could speak a little bit from that point of view of being someone who might want to take a cruise.
Yeah, Jenn she's the expert passenger, so please.
Yes, I've been cruising for years. I love to cruise, and I particularly love to expedition cruise, which is a particular niche area of the cruise market. And by that, I mean they're smaller ships, and they tend to go to more remote places, such as Antarctica or the Arctic, and they tend to have a lot of physical activity. So I certainly have enjoyed my fair share of Caribbean cruises, love that. But also I really love expedition cruises. So it's about 200 passengers on the ship, so not so many. And you are off the ship nearly every day according to your fitness and activity level. There are things for you to do. For example, get off the ship. Usually expedition cruising, you're not sleeping in too often. Usually there's an early breakfast and you're off the ship by 8 a.m. So it tends to be a very active trip. These are 7 days to maybe 2 weeks. I've done expeditions up to 35 days, but you're usually off every day in the morning. You're out on the ice if it's Antarctica, or you're off on a hike if you're in Alaska or in the Arctic, other places, and you're enjoying this incredible, pristine place. You're usually the only folks around your ship, so it can really feel very, very special to be in these places, and you have a particular ability to take incredible photographs and to just enjoy in peace and quiet, because you're not surrounded by crowds, the incredible nature around you. Then in the evenings, you come back often to the ship for lunch, because we don't damage these pristine places by taking food and other things there. So you come back and you enjoy your food on the ship, and in the evenings or in the afternoons. And of course, all of this is weather permitting. It's a bit of an adventure when you're in Antarctica. If something's happening from a weather perspective, you may need to adjust what you're doing that day, but it makes it really fun. So after you spend some time with the penguins or whatever it is you're out there doing in a Zodiac boat, you might have a lecture. You might have time to read. You might have time to get some expert advice from a professional photographer or others, or you might just have time to sit quietly and enjoy the incredible view from the ship windows or from the deck. So it's very relaxing, but at the same time, you can be very active. And in the evenings, what I've most enjoyed in cruising is the ability to have dinner with scientists or with lecturers, with people I normally wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet in my day-to-day life, but I find fascinating. And you learn so much, and you meet so many, not just your fellow passengers, but also the crew. And again, if there's lecturers or scientists. For our expeditions, our scientists have prepared some very specific things that guests, if they are interested, could participate in. So we have scientists that are very interested in advancing technology to avoid ship strikes, which largely depends on hearing the whales underwater. And so using hydrophones to listen to whales underwater and using data science and AI to better understand and interpret the signals that you're hearing could potentially lead to new technologies that all ships could have to avoid ship strikes, which is a huge problem off the coast of California. Guests can do that. Guests can participate in listening to the whales as they are underwater. And if you've never had that experience, it'll blow you away to hear them talking to each other. And then really supporting the scientists in their understanding and coding of those sounds. They've also planned some work around drones. They fly drones through the whale blow. Whales breathe at the top, and a lot of substance comes out, which you can fly a drone through and sample and take genomic samples. Helps you better understand the health of the whale, but also the ecosystem around that whale, what they're eating, how they're doing, if they're pregnant, what's happening with them. So flying drones through whale blow is something our scientists will also be doing. as appropriate, and guests may participate in that in some way. And finally, there may be expeditions where there is a need. Our scientists may be needing to specifically tag whales, and that would be super fun to be out on a Zodiac trying to tag a whale, if you can imagine that. So lots of opportunities to interact with whales or just enjoy seeing them from the deck, which is what I've done for many years, enjoyed very much.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say that also because of the particular ships that we are going to acquire in the high seas, there will also some activities because the scientists will be working on the labs, and that's something very unique that we will have as a company. So the guest will open to see that. And also, if a guest don't want to participate and just want to enjoy and go, we will have also spas, a gym, or if someone wants to read or whatever he wants to do, there's enough space in the ship to have your own activities if they want. And the good thing is that having their own activities, it will be also good for the environment, because then we will go to the bathroom and all of what they're producing, it will be also used as fertilizer, right? So that's the good thing, that you, just for being there, just for sailing, to be a seafarer, you are going to produce a positive impact into the environment. Yeah.
Just adding on what Hugo's saying there, because I don't think we've explained it yet, and that is the first project that we're engaging is to explore whether and how we could transform food waste and human waste into a whale feces-like substrate, something that looks like whale poop. And it should be able to do, but no one's done it. So this is the work we need to do to leverage the existing biodigester technology that exists on ships that's used to currently process the waste, and understand how we might filter it differently and how we might add a different, adjust the nutrients and the mixtures biochemically, so that what comes out the other end, and as it's put into the ocean, which is what ships are doing every day, they're putting this into the ocean. But now when it goes into the ocean, it actually resembles to all life in the sea whale poop, and therefore it should have the same impact as whale poop. And so that'll be very exciting, and that's what Hugo means. Just by being on the ship and eating and pooping, you are contributing to science. And maybe you might also want to
You're storing the ocean.
Come and see how the magic of the research is done. If that's something that you want to work closely with scientists and really understand that, it could be a lot of fun.
I just think it's fascinating. And I love how holistically you guys strategize so many pieces of this, so that at each end of when you go someplace that you're having an impact where you go. I think for those who want to learn more too, you guys have a crowdfunder up right now. So I would encourage people to check out the crowdfunder, and they can learn even more about all the different ways that you're finding ways to do good on the planet for people and for the health of the oceans and biodiversity and climate all at the same time. I just think it's really brilliant, and I love opportunities for businesses to actually do good in the world, because unfortunately I feel like so much of the predicament we're in today is because that model has not been encouraged nearly enough in terms of really thinking through the impact that we're making while we're also making a living. So just kudos to both of you. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for being here with me and sharing it with everybody. And do you want to give a shout out for how people can find your crowdfunder?
Well, for sure, just come to our website and you can find the link there to the crowdfunder. So that's positivepolar.com, and love for you to learn more about it, participate directly as an investor. Potentially, you may be an academic, a potential collaborator, or a strategic partner who's interested in this kind of research. I would love to hear from you. We're building those partnerships now, so please do reach out, fellow Floridians.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Thank you.
Join us.